Just about maybe an hour and a half ago, 5 Russian rockets hit an industrial zone in Kharkiv city. There was an eco park, and then there was the headquarters of a demining organization run by Swiss citizens.
Before we continue, we invite you to follow our channel, the only American show reporting live from Ukraine every day.
Russia is offering Moscow residents $22,000 to join the military. It sounds like they're having trouble getting troops in Ukraine. Let's go to Joseph Lindsley for the latest on that. Joe, how does that sound to you? What's going on?
Well, Bob, good afternoon from Kyiv, and the city of Kharkiv has been under heavy attack, which I'll tell you about in a moment. But regarding this, and from the best we can tell, it seems Moscow and St. Petersburg, the 2 main cities of Russia, have been in many ways preserved from the reality of the war. Most of the conscription that's been happening in Russia is, far away, and Russia's a massive country, and so as far away as possible from those 2 capital cities. And you can see plenty of videos online of people living pretty normal lives. Although, as you see, you could also look at videos in Kyiv and see what would seem on the face of it a normal life. But of course, the war has to affect everyone. Everyone somehow is connected to it in a way. But I think that the Kremlin has done its best to preserve, sort of a normal life for the elites. We've already seen in the past really half a year, the Russians have been working to recruit people from other nations, nations that are, sort of friendly with Russia, to come and fight, and the promise of money. And, I think if you look at the Russian economy, it's like there's lots of evidence of this. And a lot of this I know because, Ukrainians, because of the history of the Soviet-controlled Soviet Union, and how everyone was united under a Moscow empire for centuries. Many Ukrainians, especially in the east of the country, have relatives in Russia. And before the full-scale invasion, even though Russia was occupying parts of Crimea, it was still not uncommon for people to go visit their family, even to do work in Russia. And so there was a good sense of the reality of it. And once you leave Moscow City, there's incredible poverty. And that's, we've heard the stories of how Russian soldiers were surprised when they came into Ukrainian villages and found that in this country village, people had iPads and iPhones. That's not really the reality in so many places in Russia. And I think that's part of why, in many ways, the war has probably benefited Putin. It's given people a purpose in an economy that didn't really have many other outlets. As we see this, we also are seeing more and more, again, the war negotiation calls for peace. And this, there's certain moments in the past 2.5 years when this happens. And it seems to be when Russia doesn't have a great strategic effort on the ground, in the sea, or in the sky. And certainly in the Black Sea, Ukrainians have cleaned it up. It's very dangerous for Russian ships to be there. In the past 24 hours, yet another Russian ferry that brings cargo and military equipment from the mainland to the Crimean Peninsula was destroyed. Some are saying that this was the last functional military cargo ferry that the Russians were using down there. So we see continued success in the Black Sea. We see that generally Ukrainian cities away from the front have been safe and calm. Until today, the last big Russian attack on Ukrainian cities was on more than 2 weeks ago on the eve of the NATO summit. And so we've had a window of 2 weeks of relative peace, 2 weeks where, Ukrainians could have been receiving weapons and permission. They have the weapons, but receiving permission to hit Russian military bases to prevent the next big attack. And that didn't happen. All that momentum was lost after the NATO conference. No one was talking about giving Ukraine permission to hit back, as Washington made it very clear. Not only will the White House not give Ukraine that permission, but they will do what they can to prevent European countries from letting Ukrainians use European-made tools to hit the Russians on Russian soil. And as a result of that, we see what we have today in Kharkiv. Just about maybe an hour and a half ago, within a few minutes, 5 Russian rockets hit an industrial zone in Kharkiv city. This is a pretty extraordinary, precise, targeted attack on infrastructure, it seems. It's still hard to get details on what exactly happened. As is normal, you have to wait a while so the Russians can't correct with their targets. But from what I hear in Kharkiv, it was an incredibly loud afternoon. And just an hour before that, there was another round of missiles hitting Kharkiv city. So two major attacks in the daytime today, but also in the early hours this morning, the Russians also pounded Kharkiv city. So we have not really seen this type of intense attack on Kharkiv since May. Since up until that time when Washington did give Ukrainians permission to hit Russian bases close to Kharkiv city, that made the city much safer. But now Russians can attack. They can attack from further away, from sort of these untouchable bases where the Ukrainians cannot use American tools to prevent these attacks. And among the things that were hit early this morning in Kharkiv was there was an eco park, and then there was the headquarters of a demining organization run by Swiss citizens. And so it seems that they directly targeted, or they directly hit the demining headquarters run by Swiss citizens. So that obviously, you think of anytime something like that happens, it affects every foreign volunteer here, knowing that they could be a target, and probably that's what Russians are trying to discourage. But it's been incredibly difficult in Kharkiv today, and we don't know. We still don't know if these attacks are over for the day.
In a new interview with Ukraine's new commander-in-chief of the military, he did describe what's going on there as very difficult, but he said in principle the enemy has not made any significant progress, and he was fairly optimistic, although tight-lipped, about when Ukraine is going to get the delivery of F-16 fighter jets. But he said, "I know we will win, and I know how." Anything new on those F-16s?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same old story, I think. I mean, there was if we go back and look at Google the headlines from early June, and there was, people were excited, saying F-16s are coming. Anyone who said this is taking too long was told, "Oh, be patient, don't worry." It took time, but they're on their way. And now it's almost July. It's almost August, and there's zero evidence of it. We were told they were going to be here this summer, and it's the same thing. In December we were told they're going to be here in March. There's a pattern of kicking the can down the road. And as President Zelensky said at NATO, in kind of an off-the-cuff moment, the NATO summit in Washington, one of his moments, usually he's very diplomatic, but every once in a while you can see his frustration. He said, whatever F-16s are planned to arrive this year won't be enough. So it seems that if any will arrive this year, it'll just be a handful. And I think his contention, and the contention of people that follow this closely, is you send Ukraine a few F-16s after 2 years of all the talk and asking for it. Well, just a few F-16s is not going to be enough to change the situation. But there's still going to be public pressure. People are going to say, "Hey, we gave you F-16s. Why isn't everything better?" And so Zelensky was very frustrated by that situation. I mean, when the Kingdom of Belgium promised F-16s back in June, if you look at the details, most of them won't be here until 2028. When people hear that now, that sounds almost impossible. It's very heavy and difficult I don't think they're coming. That's the short answer.
Wow. Well, easy for us here to say be patient. We're not the ones ducking Russian missiles and drones. Hang in, Joseph. We'll connect with you tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you for introducing Ukraine on your social media pages. That's very important that much more people can get more information about the situation here and how everybody can help Ukraine to stay stronger and to save all the world.
Що сказав?
Well, which side are you on?
На чиїй ти стороні?
Come on now. Oh, which side are you on?
На чиїй ти стороні?